Good evening. I will now call to order the Chesterfield Township Planning Commission meeting on December 5th, 2023. I will call the roll. Mr. Miller? Here. Mr. Lavelle?
Here.
Mr. Demink? Here. Mr. Leonard? Here. Mr. Renault?
Here.
Mr. Jaworski?
Here.
Mr. Klinowski? Here. Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Brokart?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes of prior meeting. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of November 21st. Support. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the agenda. I will make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted. Support. Motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Public comments. Right now, 3-minute time limit. Anybody like to speak? Seeing no one. There's no public hearings tonight. Reviews. Our Secretary Rick will do the items we can do in a timely manner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A is sign review J23-2482. It's Tom's Auto Glass located at 48850 Gratiot Avenue. The applicant is requesting variances for a new freestanding sign. The applicant's here this evening, Mr. Anyways, if the applicant would come up front and give us a presentation of what you're proposing. Yeah, your handout would be great.
You can hand them out. Here. Oh, we want you at the podium. And please turn on the microphone.
Test, test. Yeah, I guess it works. Okay, good evening. My name is Ed Phillips, Phillips Sign and Lighting, 40920 Executive Drive, Harrison Township. Here this evening with Mr. Jesse Berger, owner of Tom's Auto Glass, at, as previously said, 48850 Gratiot, Chesterfield Township. Our hardship is public safety and the configuration of Tom's approved site plan as it relates to the building, parking, and curb structures. Page 1 of our handout. Please note the silver van that's parked near our sign. Note the location of the back wheel. If the back wheel was backed up to the curb, our sign would be totally invisible. This is a typical occurrence. As we are located on a curve with limited visibility, we feel in an effort to promote public safety, our sign must be visible. To that end, we are requesting a 4-foot height variance, allowing a 12-foot high sign in lieu of the 8-foot required by the ordinance. Please note that this is an 8-foot reduction in height from the existing sign if you look at handout page 5. And that is to scale that drawing. We feel this additional 48 inches would ensure visibility regardless of what's occupying our out front parking locations, because that van is typically one of the taller vans, so we'd be good in any case. Our present sign is 143 square feet. The proposed sign is 86 square feet. This is a 57 square foot reduction. We are in need of a 22-foot variance on the square footage tonight as well. Setback from center line will also be increased from an existing 62 feet to 67 feet from the center line of Gratiot. In conclusion, we feel considering the challenges on our site, our request is in good taste and good for both Chesterfield Township and Tom's Auto Glass. Your approval would be much appreciated.
Thank you. Jonathan, you want to have anything to say about the sign?
The applicant pretty much summed up all the variance requests they're asking for. There is 3 of them. I would remind you that all 3 of them need to be acted on separately, and I did, you do have a handout in front of you that does go over the 5 criteria that the planning commission must find affirmative to grant the variance. Other than that, if anyone has any questions for me, I can answer them.
Thank you.
Mr. Palin, just a quick question. The setback from the center line of the road, what is required there?
For a major road, it's 70 feet from the center line, which is essentially 10 feet off the property line. The ordinance states both, 70 feet from center line, and no sign shall be located closer than 10 feet to any property line.
So, Mr. Phillips, is there a way that you can get us a little more than 62.2 inches from the center line of the road? Can you get us up to 80 feet or 70 feet?
Go ahead.
The issue with that is the sign, if you look at the picture of the overhead, page 2 or page 3, the sign is located very close already to the curb cuts where vehicles are parked. And so if you were to try to bring that sign in toward the building, you would literally be placing it in the concrete area where cars park. And we have a limited amount of parking as it is right now. That place can be absolutely packed with cars. We really can't afford to lose any parking. So it's a little bit, that's a difficulty. So you're really dealing with 3 different situations here. One, it's a little closer to the road than you would approve in a new sign, but it's that way because of a prior approved site plan. And it's in a unique spot in a curve at the road where it's hard to see. You know, those are definitely 2 hardships for us.
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
I would think that 63 feet, I'm sure that's not giving you much, but we could certainly achieve that. And that's what,
Oh, you can
7
shift
feet?
on the poles,
Sure,
right.
sure,
Gotcha, yeah.
sure. And that's, 7 feet short of what the ordinance requires anyway.
Okay, good idea.
The existing sign is.
Yeah. The new sign would be.
Is there a utility easement that runs through there?
They're close. We're going to be lower, and the NEC, National Electric Code, mandates that we're 10 feet from a power line. We can easily accomplish that with the smaller sign.
Well, the utility company would have an easement on that front property line. Are you encroaching that easement on that front property with your signage?
Not any more than what's presently. In fact, we're decreasing by 5 feet.
Okay. Is there any way that you can make this sign 64 square feet?
We fought pretty hard with Z-Bart. So half of what goes on at Tom's Auto Glass is we are a Z-Bart franchise, and their requirements are a larger sign. And so we've gone around and around with them. I would not be at liberty to approve tonight anything smaller than I've already agreed with them prior to coming to this meeting. We'd have to go back and talk to them further, but it's already been a very contentious situation. Very much like if you're dealing with Ford Motor Company, Kenworth Truck Company, it's one of those situations that, they have opinions and they have some national standards, and it's hard to get around those things.
Understood.
Can that Z-Bart sign be put on your building instead of on your monument sign?
Z-Bart wants that sign at the road, and they want to be on top. We would like Tom's Auto Glass on top because that's the identity of our business. About half of what goes on there is Auto Glass, and about half of what goes on is Z-Bart. And so it's a struggle to maintain that dual identity.
The original sign that you have now has a very small Z-Bart tag to it, so anything you do would be considerably larger than what they currently have. So I'm not sure why they would be opposed to it being smaller, even though they're gaining a lot more visibility on the new sign, regardless of the size. Because right now, it's probably 1/20th, if that, of the existing sign.
That's a good observation. However, they've made it clear what they want, and they're threatening to cancel our franchise should we not be successful, in a sign change. And one of the solutions that they have is they are willing to just ship us a sign that fits in the top box because they have them in stock, and I've I've drugged my feet with that. If unsuccessful here, we will probably just allow them to ship us the insert, and we'll stick it in there and not have our franchise canceled. You know, that, obviously, we can't have our franchise canceled.
Are they funding any part of the cost of redoing the sign?
Not the proposal that we have here, that's all our money, which we would rather use our own money than be beholden to them on the sign. If they ship us the insert, that's, you know, the 5-foot tall one for that top box of the existing sign, they would just give that to us for free.
They have those made up already?
They do, right. That's a standard size for them is 5 by 15, which is what the current sign is, and they want us to just accept their 5 by 15. We would rather just build our own sign, even if it's smaller.
Okay.
So just to be clear, the 5 by 15 would go in the existing
It would,
existing
yeah, the
cabinets.
5 by 15, they would just ship us a piece of Lexan that says Z-Bart. We would stick it in the 5 by 15. We'd put some new stickers on the bottom, you know, walk away and spend a whole lot less money. I will note, and this is just a little bit editorial, you know, in the last couple of months, business has greatly softened at a number of businesses I own. I own more than just this business. And, you know, this is a $20,000, $30,000 project, and budgets always grow, right? So this is not the best time to do this. I'm definitely willing to do it. I will see the project through. And I understand that the sign ordinance is well-intentioned. And I've lived in Chesterfield for 30 years. I'm a big landowner in Chesterfield, got a farm here, I love it here. I want to see the community clean, but it's going to take a long time to get businesses to comply with that sign ordinance because it takes a lot of money to do it. I mean, any one of these signs up and down Gratiot, you know, Ed could tell you, pretty big money, and as things get tougher, it's going to be like, you know, getting blood out of a rock to get people to be like, oh, I want to go from my big sign to a small sign for 20, 30, 40, 50 grand. So, and I'm willing to do it, but I can't. You know, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place in terms of Z-Bart, getting their approval, and doing something that's tasteful for the community.
A word on the height of the sign, if I may. The truck that you saw sitting out there on page 1 again is 9 foot, I'm sorry, it's 8'6". If you look at the drawing on page 5 of the new sign, the 8'6" winds up just about above the address on the 48850. So Tom's Auto Glass will always be visible. That's the objective here. So when people are coming north, down Gratiot, it's kind of a quick turn there because you've got a couple of larger signs, sorry about that, that are obscuring your vision until you get almost on top of Tom's. So we're doing everything we can, working with, still we're asking for 4 feet in height, we know that. But that's the minimum to keep it legible with our limited parking.
Any other comments from the rest of the commission? Mr. Debate?
That one weeping mulberry tree showing on the existing sign, is that still going to be where the new sign is, or are you getting rid of that mulberry tree?
No, there's several of those in that area. I need to get rid of those and then, of course, re-landscape the front. So that's not proposed in here, but the trees have to go away to accomplish the project.
Which will clean that whole front up.
What'd you say, Ms. Phillips?
That needs cleaning up out there, and that'll be a big improvement, just the re-landscaping.
Yeah, I mean, Tom's Auto Glass has been around forever. I've given them a lot of business over my 65 years in this township, so.
1979,
Yeah, well, I've been around longer than that.
44 years.
So they've always done good work, and Tom did a great job, and I know he's finally sold out to go retire. A lot of variances, like, I'll reserve my comments for the remainder of the commissioners.
Mr. Brokart?
Help me understand the special circumstances behind this request. One of the things we have to consider are special circumstances that would allow us to approve your request. You talk about the road having a big bend and it doesn't allow people to see the sign. I'm not sure I understand that. Could you help me understand, please?
Sure. When you're driving down Gratiot or up Gratiot, if you're heading northbound, okay, the road begins to curve and you don't you don't get to see the sign until, I don't want to say the last minute, but it's obscured up until a point, and then boom, you can see it. And so we really want to get it just above the car so people can be like, there's the address and there's the name, and be able to pull in rather than get too far and then be jamming on the brakes to try to make that driveway. And there's no really good place to turn around if you miss it. You got to go down quite a ways to turn around and come back. It's a bit of a dangerous spot between 22 Mile Road and Tom's and that Tubby's right there. You know, when I'm here and I'm going in there, I'm getting into that turn lane. If I'm coming from my farm, you know, heading southbound, getting that turn lane, you got to get just past where the trucks start to turn on 22 and move over. That area, to me, I'm a truck safety guy, that's a dangerous area. And so the last thing we want to do is have people in confusion as to where am I going. And so I hope that sums up that.
It does, and
Yeah.
it's your contention the new sign would address that.
It'll be at the right eye level, correct?
Thank you.
Mr. Renault? Mr. Carr?
I mean, I think we already kind of talked about it. I mean, I understand some of the practical difficulties that they describe, but, you know, because we've already dealt with this many times, you know, same situation many times, and we're gonna get a lot more of them as the new ordinance kicks in, I think in 2027. You know, again, I just say the same thing I say all the time, is we just gotta be careful that we maintain consistency with everybody, we don't set precedences. So for me, I think I can be flexible with you know, the height and size within a controlled variance. But I do think we can try to get a little closer to the you know, size of our ordinance. I do know about the cars because just like Mr. Demink, I also have been going to Tom's for like 20-something years. So, and with 4 teenagers, I've been there several times.
Thank you.
So, you know, I'm very familiar with this. So I knew when this came up, I knew about the parking situation because I always park in those 4 spots. And so very familiar with the location and the site, and I can be, you know, and definitely sensitive to business owners and small businesses because they're very important to the community and to the United States. So I definitely want to work with you. I don't know if, I think 12 might be a little bit big, and I know just looking at it, I mean, even if there's a way that, you know, you can kind of get the size, you know, like I was thinking, even if there's a way to, you know, if you take 6 inches off of each height, you know, in theory, you can get about 10, 11 foot off. At least you're, you know, now you're, you know, you're getting a little closer to our variance, and maybe that's something that I know I would consider something like that. I can't speak for everybody else, but if there's even something like that where maybe we can knock it down about a foot, again, I think that might help a little bit. Those are just some of my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski?
Well, I can definitely see why you're asking for it. I mean, that sign would be hindered by a large van. I would be a little flexible on the frontage requirement. I can see where, you know, the size of the lot, but, you know, looking at the future of 2027 with the variances coming up with signs across the board, I just don't see, I mean, we're gonna have that same van parked in front of the sign issue with every sign that comes up on Gratiot. And as far as square footage, I think in the past, again, I feel for the client as far as its multi-businesses in that spot. I mean, we've had others reduce their signage with similar situations, so just be real cautious about moving forward with any variances when it comes to signs. Personally, I think your money might be better served if you put the sign on the building and remove that tree. I mean, you could see it better from the road that way, but that's just my opinion.
Can I speak to that? I don't know if it's my time to talk, is it? Okay, southbound, the way the building is positioned on the property, you don't see the front of the building. You have to literally snap your head and look back to see that building. So it would work northbound, there's no doubt about that. Southbound, not a deal breaker.
Thank you. Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, I definitely can see the sign location I could see the variance there, because there's really no place else to put it. They've got a point with the height because of their limited parking. A little bit concerned about the square footage, though. That's a concern for me. Thank you.
Mr. Leonard?
Yeah, I can see some special circumstances here. Even though we're gonna be seeing a lot of signs in the future, everyone's gotta stand on its own, so. The curve of the property, I was there the other day, actually yesterday, and parked in the driveway, and that curve is the driveway south of you. That driveway right there, it kind of disappears, Gratiot does, beyond that. So I can see the visibility problem. Putting a sign on the building would be even a problem, even coming from that direction as well as the other direction, just because this, with it on the building, you'd have to be almost right in front of it to really pick up on it. So I see what's the purpose of putting it where it's at. The biggest thing for me is you didn't create any of the issues that you're dealing with here. Everything was there. It's all there. If you were repaving the parking lot and you had all these other improvements going on, it'd be a different circumstance for me. So I see that none of this was created by you. The sign has gotten smaller from the existing sign. How big is the existing sign right now? Is there dimension?
143 square feet.
I'm sorry?
143 square feet.
And you're going down to
We're
80?
going down to 86 square feet.
You know, I can see dropping it a foot might help, but visually, I don't think it would be noticeable whether it was 12 foot high or 11 foot high. I mean, it is smaller. You can't really move it back because it goes into the concrete. You can't move it towards the sidewalk, but you've kind of squeezed it in so that it's further away from the center line of the road. I just see problems here. The thing with Z-Bart, I'm not sure. How many years has Tom's been doing Z-Bart?
Since 1979, there in that building.
And is there any other Z-Bart locations in the area? Not in Chesterfield,
Not in
I don't-
Chesterfield, no. There's some to the south, down in Clinton Township, 15 Mile in Gratiot, or
So,
15 Mile in Groesbeck.
so I don't know if Z-Bart would pull the franchise or not, since you've been established for so many years, but I can see that they might try to muscle you a bit. I don't know if there's a way to shrink the Z-Bart freestanding sign and still get a smaller sign on the building to kind of give you, you know, the recognition size that they might be looking for, it being 2 spots instead of 1. I don't know if that's a way to fix anything, to decrease the sign out by the sidewalk there. But I don't know all the answers, but I know that I will be voting for some flexibility on this petition. Thank you.
Ed was just looking at the square footage, he thinks in an effort, and I'd have to run this by Z-Bart, but an effort to get closer to the number that you're looking for. If we went from 86 to 80, we may be able to accomplish that. That would only be a 14-foot square foot variance, which is, again, we've demonstrated some significant hardship. Certainly would need to make a call to get that approved by Z-Bart, but we want to work with you in good faith. It is just such a unique situation for us. Decreasing just the square footage of it.
Square footage. Again, we're trying to keep that Tom's Auto Glass above the potential of a large van parking there and still have some legibility heading north.
Right, you'll still be, what is it, 3 foot 10 off the ground, right?
No, actually, if we reduced, and our appeal is only 14 square foot, it would come up, we'd have a little more ground clearance. The bottom would come up.
Wouldn't you lower the top down from 12 feet if you were going to decrease the square footage?
Again, we're trying to keep that Tom's Auto Glass high enough to be legible over a van. Whatever can park there, we want to make sure it's legible, so people can make the driveway. In this instance, the picture you're looking at, item 1 there, that first page, If the sign has to be any lower than 12 feet, you are not going to see, you are not going
Oh,
to know
yeah.
to turn in that driveway.
This is the old sign, and you said the bottom of the existing sign is 8 feet right now?
Bottom of the existing
The
sign.
bottom of the existing sign from the ground is
Oh, it's
8,
higher than that. It's
about
way
8
higher.
feet?
Yeah.
Much higher.
If you- yeah.
Higher than 8 feet? Because the van is what, about 7, 6.5?
It's probably 7.5 feet.
So you're gonna drop that sign down pretty much half of where it's at now.
Exactly,
Totally.
right.
This is to
Right.
scale. What you're looking at, there's scale.
So,
I'm sensing the most serious issue is, for the township is square footage. I don't think that granting a variance for its location off the road is that difficult to come to based on what we see today, right? Even the height variance, I think, can be overcome as far as not just giving it to everybody. People have to demonstrate a hardship. Those two things don't seem as difficult. The square footage thing, I think, is the hardest thing for the township because everyone's gonna come for a square footage variance. That's the hard part, I think. And so that's what we're trying to neck that down, but still keep the manufacturer happy,
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Berger, what are you proposing this evening then? I mean, from what I'm hearing from the rest of the group, we can probably be flexible with the height as well as the setback, but the square footage seems to be a real issue for all of us, just simply because when we do, in the past, we've been doing signs for quite a few years, we've always stuck to 64 square feet, unless you're 200 feet off the road, severe hardships. How do you want us to proceed this evening? How do you want to proceed?
I'd like to sell 80 feet to Z-Bart and get that approved this evening and move forward with the project in an efficient manner. There's so many signs in the township that don't adhere. I would be a win for the township. I'd be someone to point at and be like, hey, we did the right thing with this guy. Like Tubby's, the Tubby sign that when you're going north, that obscures my sign right now because it's huge,
It is.
right? How are you gonna get those people to walk in here and do that? You need some wins, and I'm willing to be one of those wins. So I'll sell the 80 feet to Z-Bart. It's just a minor give on your part, I hope. I hope I'm not, making light of that. It's a minor give and a give on my part. It's a good partnership.
Mr. Palin?
Yeah, we just pulled up the Z-Bart sign at Van Dyke, and that sign is all black, which made me think that in our ordinance, there's a provision that if it's a solid, non-reflective black background, the outer limits of the signage don't count towards the square footage. So, I mean, that's potentially an option for the applicant. I see now they have some black and some red. If that whole panel was to be non-reflective black, just basically the rectangle around the logo and the wording would count towards the square footage. So there might be some flexibility there as well.
That's great, thank you, Jonathan. I was gonna propose a minute ago, I thought you guys would laugh at me. This Z-Bar thing down here, it's a larger set, well, it's not large, it's small, but that's the only copy on that sign is Z-Bar with a logo. If we make the background red, opaque, so it does not light at night, would that in any way satisfy could that address this square footage issue?
That calls up to the planning commission. As far as the ordinance goes, it has to be a black, non-reflective background.
At least around it.
We pulled up the sign here on the one in Sterling Heights where I work, because I knew it, so I said, John, pull it up. Because they just have the sign and they have like help wanted underneath. So it's like totally
Are you
different than
okay with
yours.
all black background?
I'd have to ask them. That's their layout, but the frame could be black. You could probably encroach a little bit. Come in a little bit. Suck up some of the square foot. It's gotta close.
I have a question for Jonathan. So what you're saying is if the background was all black, they could keep it at the 86 square feet?
Yeah, basically the way the ordinance lays it out is that you take the signage, so whether that be logo, wording, and you draw a rectangle around the extreme outer limits. So in this case, what's proposed in front of you, you're looking at,
Probably do like black.
the Toms,
The frame.
auto glass,
But that frame is a significant amount of.
and the
I mean,
Z-Bart,
I-
and you're taking that full area and drawing the rectangle
Maybe
around
it's
it.
in there somewhere.
The ordinance has another possession when an internally or
Yeah,
externally
I'm talking about
illuminated
really
sign
encroaching.
has a non-reflective black background, the area that is outside the extreme limits described in section 52.5A1, which is talking about the rectangle. So basically, you just go around the messaging and not the black. But any other color, any other type of material does count towards that square footage.
Oh, yeah, see, that's not, there.
And there's even,
Did you guys catch that?
No, go ahead, say again.
If you go with the black, which we can point to for an, possible approval for this, you could keep the square footage the way it is. The size would stay the same, just do the black.
also, if you look at section 52-5, there's figure 1 in there, it labels it out and how that works as far as the, measuring the sign area when it has a black background.
In the drawing you guys are looking at, or the image you're looking at, is the zebra word white or is it yellow?
The one we're looking at, the other sign?
Yes, yes.
Pull it back up. Come on up here. Here's the one on Van Dyke south of Hall Road.
Oh, just the shield. It's a square, it's more square. That's an acceptable logo, but the new version has the long red, so I get that.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Demink, did you say they just redid that sign?
The one in Sterling, I don't know. I just knew there was one
Oh.
there, and that's why I had Jonathan pull it up real quick. I wanted to look at that one.
And it just has a
Can you go
logo?
with just a logo?
It just got like
The shield?
You have to really
the shield and what the guy's head, you know. it
Doesn't
looks
say
like a-
Z-Bart on there too?
Yeah, it's, I think, did it say zebra on there?
It says Z-Bart in their logo itself, but they're
But you have
looking-
you have the shield and the Z-Bart
Their,
name, which,
their new identity guide.
Yeah, it
that-
does
that-
have zebra in the shield.
Yeah, their
So-
new identity guide, what they just published at their last dealer meeting, which was in June, that they handed out to all the dealers, has the word Z-Bart written out. So it's like when Kenworth Truck Company says, or, Ford Motor Company says, this is how we're doing it now, they give it to you, and that's what you're supposed to do.
that would, I don't know about the others, but that would be a really good compromise for me if it was the black and gave us the ability to have you leave the size to the sign the way it is. Then Z-Bart gets the name, they get the same size that they've approved already, everything's a go, if it's all in black. I'd be good with that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
Mr. Berger, would you like us to postpone making a decision this evening, give you an opportunity to meet with Z-Bart, talk about what you can do? You're hearing what we're,
Approve the black, we'll try to get it.
you're hearing what we're talking about
We're
here.
hearing what
I
you're
mean,
talking about, right.
What was sticking us is the 64 square feet. If you have an opportunity to speak with them and possibly, even the Tom's Auto Glass, making that all black, and because that would also work into this thing, give Mr. Phillips, let him work his magic, would you consider us postponing this until, our next meeting isn't until January 16th?
I would. I would also ask, in the effort of efficiency, would it be possible to, if I can get that done, would you approve that black at the 80 square feet, thereby not requiring us to come back here? Am I saying that right?
Can I suggest something to my client here for one quick second? What if we just go all black on top? And I can do some yellow copy, and you can do some other stuff, and that'll solve it. We
Yeah.
can go with our red and black.
That's a good.
Okay.
What Ed just reminded me is, I have flexibility on my portion of the Tom sign. What I don't have is flexibility on the Z-Bart sign. So given that,
Let's go all black on that top sign.
let's go all black on the top sign to meet the township's needs, me being flexible, because your needs are my needs. But on the Z-Bart, I still can meet the Z-Bart manufacturer's needs, and that would work.
Perfect. Then the sign that we presented can be.
Can be accepted.
Can be accepted.
That's smart, Ed.
Well, we would need, and I know that's not something you can give us this evening, by going with the black background, we're going to need your calculations, Mr. Phillips, as to how many square feet are we achieving the 64 square feet?
Okay, okay.
So I think it would be wise for us to postpone making a decision this evening.
Totally.
Postpone until the 16th and give you an opportunity to
To do that?
work your magic.
Yes, sir.
We'll make it happen.
Okay.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Gonna make that
Mr.
Gonna make that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to postpone making a decision this evening until January the 16th for sign review J23-2482, Tom's Auto Glass, 48850 Gratiot.
We have a motion by Mr. Bell, supported by Mr. Miller. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks for all your time.
Thank you. Guess we're done. Item B is 24 Mile Road Mini Storage Site Plan, 2023-11, M1, 13.81 acres, north side of 24 Mile Road between Bates and Chesterfield Road. The parcel ID is 15-09-08-376-001. The applicant was here once before, and it was tabled on 9/19/2023. The applicant is here this evening. Ms. Osborne, you want to give us your summary of what transpired since then?
I'll defer, okay, so we have, again, application in front of us for, self-storage, mini storage at 24 Mile Road and Gratiot, 24 Mile and Bates. Again, we've seen this before. Since submitting, or since the last meeting that they were in front of us, all administrative site plan revisions that are in the letter that's in your packet from September have been met. And so really, what the Planning Commission should be focusing on tonight is the 4 items that start at the bottom of page 4 and go on to, at the bottom of page 1 and go on to page 2. Those being the acceptability of the proposed steel paneling for the building exterior, especially considering that the parcel abuts residential districts. General M1 potential concerns, so any concerns with nuisances related to a mini storage. And then acceptability of the pedestrian circulation on site and acceptability of proposed screening, particularly the use of a decorative masonry wall and the chain link fence. So I'm happy to answer questions that the commissioners may have.
The applicant's present. Would you mind coming to the podium and addressing those 4 items?
Good evening. Phil Porty, BMJ Engineers and Surveyors. We're the site designers of it, and I have with me Jay Folsky from Downriver Apartments. I'm going to let Jay talk about the paneling because he's...
What questions do you have on the paneling, I guess?
As Ms. Osborne said, item A is accessibility of proposed steel panels for building exterior, considering that the parcel abuts residential districts. That was one of the things. Concerns about noise, odors, gases, glare and heat, exterior lighting, vibration, smoke, dirt, dust, fly ash, radioactive materials, power, electrical radiation, waste, bulk storage of flammable liquids or liquefied petroleum gases. Standards for these potential nuisances are found in section 3.21-F-3. Is there anything that we would be concerned about with noise, odors, gases, and such?
No, I do not believe so. In our lease agreement, none of these, flammable or batteries, tires, radioactive, any of that stuff cannot be stored on site.
Okay. The next item was accessibility of pedestrian circulation on the site. That's always a concern that for all of us. Does any of the other board members have any concerns with circulation on the site?
I think overall it's pretty good. I don't see any issues with the circulation.
And lastly is accessibility of proposed screening, particularly use of decorative masonry walls and chain link fence. I will make a comment about the fence. Our ordinance doesn't allow anything sharp on top, barbed wire fences in this zoning. We would need a proposal, we would need, and I would think that would probably be the only thing that we'd have to have administratively corrected. We want a guarantee from you that the fence is going to be changed so that it isn't dangerous.
Yeah, we can revise that part of the drawing to show that that,
Okay. And like I said, the township, Mr. Palin doesn't have a problem with that being administratively taken care of.
I would like to point out that there is no decorative masonry wall anymore.
That was the wording from our
Correct,
ordinance.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, just so everyone is aware, that did change in the revised plans. It's now the 3-foot berm with the 2 rows of evergreen trees and a decorative fence. So that does meet the ordinance standard as well.
The trees that you have picked out, Russian olive?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Russian olive, is there a different tree that you could use instead of that?
Sure. There's
It's not a very good tree, I'm just saying. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, there's a list of
Yeah.
selections to make. If that's not preferable, we can certainly change that out.
okay, thank you. Any thing from the commission, Mr. Demink? Mr. Brokart? Mr. Renault?
I don't know if I've missed it, but has there been any discussion about the setback not being met on the east side there? It seems to be off by quite a bit, because it looks like it's supposed to be 100 foot, and we're only at 60 and a half, or unless I'm misreading that one, excuse me. Yeah, no. I'll defer to you, Brian.
I don't know, things not working. I think you missed the meeting when we looked at this last time, but we all, from our perspective, obviously, it's up to you and from yours. We were all comfortable with the east side being that the railroad tracks are there. You're creating that additional buffer to the residential zone on the east side. So in theory, it's the width of the right of way of the train and then plus that 60 feet, so.
Got it, okay.
Most of us didn't have an issue with that.
Thank you for that. Yes, I was not here for that one.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
Nope, I'm good then.
Anything else, Brian?
Just, the only thing, Mr. LaBelle, wasn't the first one just addressing the building materials, make sure they were appropriate for abutting to the residential on the west side? I didn't, did he address that? The only thing I see is just on the south side of Building A, they did like a cultured stone. I just didn't know if that was in compliance with, I think that's probably more for you, if that's in compliance with, you know, is the metal okay everywhere else? Abutting up to the residential to the west.
I believe so, yes. Jonathan, did you take a look at that in your revise, or in your look this afternoon?
Yeah, just as Brian had said, that one side of the buildings was changed to the cultured stone, but the rest remains the panels.
Okay, thank you.
I'm fine with everything, thank you.
With that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the item B, 24 Mile Road Mini Storage Site Plan 2023-11, M1, 13.81 acres. The property ID is 15-09-08-376-001. There's 2 items that need to be handled administratively. One of the items, and please include this in my motion, is that the fence tops be changed to something that is not so dangerous. And secondly, there is a choice that can be made of the different types of trees that can be planted in our township, and to changing the trees from the olive trees to something else, you know, that's deciduous, that is part of our township ordinance. With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you
You're all
very much
set.
for your time.
Item C is Laurels of Chesterfield, Site Plan 2023-18. It's a preliminary review site condominium, A1, 24.85 acres, the southeast corner of 25 Mile Road and Chesterfield Roads. The parcel ID is 15-09-08-100-027. Ms. Osborne, you want to give us Giffords report, please?
Sure, thank you. So in your packets is our review letter. As I mentioned in pre-planning, this was a very straightforward application. So this is the preliminary plan review. So during this point in the process, the Planning Commission should be reviewing the overall plan for the site, including basic road and unit configurations and consistency of the plans with the applicable standards related to site condominium development, including general availability and adequacy of utilities, availability of school and recreation facilities, master plan requirements, and environmental effects. The Planning Commission may recommend conditional approval, disapproval, or approval of the preliminary plan. So as I noted, this application was very complete. There were no outstanding administrative site plan revisions needed. At the top of page 3, it gets into a little bit more about the project, what's being proposed. The applicant's proposing 10 single-family detached homes, and the site would also include just a little over a 6-acre detention pond and a 6.25-acre general common. In terms of development standards, all of the development standards meet the ordinance requirements. The plan does not include any new streets, and access will be via 25 Mile Road and Chesterfield Road. No blocks are proposed for the development. All of the required sidewalks are included in the plans. And the plan also includes a detention pond to manage stormwater in addition to that 6.25-acre general common area. And so you can see on the map on page 4 how where the hydric soils align, and this aligns with, or where they are in the site, and this aligns with where the detention pond is. The applicant noted that all regulated trees are planned to remain and provide an affidavit that there are no existing trees on the site. And there is no need for a landscape easement for this site. The site's not in a floodplain. And with regard to the number of trees that are required to be on the site, the applicant is proposing to put 3 trees on each site, on each lot. Those meet the requirements for size, type, and spacing, which is 2 trees more than what's required. Only 1 is required per site. So I'm happy to answer questions if there are any about this proposal.
Thank you. Commissioners like to comment? Mr. Domingue? Mr. Brokart?
No comments.
Mr. Renaud?
I just want to thank them for submitting a complete package. It's a rarity these days, so thank you very much. Nice job.
Mr. Carr?
I mean, overall, I agree. I thought it was a pretty comprehensive package, which is appreciated, because then, pretty much should answer all the questions, right? So we don't have to have you resubmit. But I did have a question in regards to, I also appreciated the fact that you had your easement going to the pond, because a lot of people miss that. But the pond itself, I know it's a proposed pond. I'm sure it hasn't been engineered yet, or has it? The only reason why I say that is because I see 10 feet of contour lines, which means a 10-foot deep retention pond, which is pretty deep. And again, I know it's a combination of slope versus do you have to have a fence around and things of that nature. I was just curious about that and how that works in regards to making sure it's safe and, it's done right.
Sure. First off, I'm John Eady. I'm the attorney for the project. We have Hannah Parakovic here on behalf of the developer. To answer your question, there's initial design done by Urban Land. I think they do an initial engineering, but they'll work with the township before final site plan approval to final engineer the pond.
Okay. And then I see the general common or donate to township. I assume that's something you're working on right now with the township, or trying to figure out the best way to use that? Because it's pretty much landlocked land, right? So is that why it's kind of donated?
I believe there's a park nearby or maybe adjacent to part of it. We had preliminary discussions with Mr. Palin when we first brought this project in. there didn't seem to be much of an appetite, so I think we're gonna use that as a general common area for the residents.
Okay. And I had a question. The other question I had is, there's the 2, 4, 6, 7 lots that are along the north end that I think are like going to be like single-family homes, and then these other 10 are going to be, I guess you would call them single-family condominiums?
Term of art, legal term, if there's gonna be single-family homes, they're gonna be designed the same way as the common splits.
Okay.
And actually, 6 of the 7 common splits are gonna be brought into the association by restrictive covenant on the deed. The 7th was sold, there's a house already there, so
Yeah.
so we were, but the other 6 will be part of the association. They'll combine in taking care of the pond and making sure that it's properly insured and maintained, so.
Okay, yeah, I was curious how that was all gonna work, so. Okay, no, thank you, I'm good, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Carr. Mr. Jaworski? Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, it looks good.
Mr. Leonard? I'm good. Mr. LaBelle?
Just a couple of just simple questions. I'm just wondering, they're all gonna have septic fields?
No, I believe it ties into the sanitary sewer. They're all gonna
Is
have
that-
water
Is
wells.
there sewers along there?
I believe so. That was my-
And is there water
Yes.
along there?
The water's gonna be. Flip it backwards?
Yeah, it's backwards.
Oh.
There's just city water there.
They'll have sanitary, that's correct. I'm sorry, city water, and they'll be,
Okay.
yeah, all on septic. That's
Septic
correct.
fields, but you do have city waters. 'Cause
That's right,
I did see that you have an approval from the fire department, which is great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Mr. Palin, this is a preliminary site plan approval. Are they gonna be coming in front of us again?
Yeah, so they'll do the preliminary site condo now, then they'll submit for the engineering, get their final engineering approved, then they'll come back to you with the final site plan. Generally, what you're looking for in the final site plan is it's consistent with the preliminary plan that you approved. There could be some minor differences here and there. That's more typical when you have a, 75-foot lot subdivision. When you have acre lots like they're proposing, much is probably not gonna change. I would imagine it's gonna be a pretty quick process for this one, so.
Right.
I would think pretty soon you'll be seeing the
Now, at
final.
that time, do they need to give us a number of elevations of what they're proposing to build there?
Yeah, so they'll have to do that. They'll have to finalize the master deed and bylaws. And at that time, all that will be reviewed and then approved with the final site condominium.
Master deeds and bylaws and the restrictive covenant have been submitted, the preliminary, so I think we're anticipating minimums of 1,600 for a single story, 2,000 for a multi-story, and we'll have elevations at the time of final.
Okay, great. So we're gonna see it again. I just wanted to make sure the rest of the board was aware. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
With that, I'll have a motion for somebody to give us to approve the preliminary plan.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
We have a motion by Mr. Renault, seconded by Mr. Brokart, to approve the preliminary plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you for your time, and hopefully see you soon in the new year.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Comments from the floor permitted by the commission on non-agenda items, non-related communications. Number 9 is to receive and file all comments. Oh.
Phone on, please. Thank you.
My name is Mark Wampler. I live at 50085 Dove Lane in Eagles Nest Sub off Cotton Road. The reason what I wanted to bring up was the proposed development of the property between our sub and the AT&T building on Cotton Road. I don't see it on the agenda, but I did talk with many of my neighbors, all of whom seem to be experiencing different levels of water pressure problems. Some are towards Cotton Road are experiencing water dissipation or draining, and many of those problems have been exacerbated by the clearing of the land behind our sub on that side. I know that they didn't bring it to, they didn't bring that up today to get a approval or disapproval, but I wanted to make sure that I was here to at least see if that was going to happen. Overwhelmingly in our sub, we reject the idea of 17 units going in behind us because of the water issues we already have. It's become clear that probably the biggest reason for him to want to, the gentleman to want to put in 17 units is because it's rental property and it's going to increase the value of his property, which is everybody's right. But it also at the same point, it's going to devalue the property we have in the sub we are already in. The property is zoned commercial at this time, and the proposal was to change it to residential. And given the traffic situation between Carlos and Gratiot, with the traffic light situation, another driveway with 17 residents or more, depending on how they work it, is going to exacerbate that problem dramatically. So we, as a community, in in that sub, we oppose that zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9 on the agenda is. Jonathan? Sir?
Yeah, that rezoning was in front of the planning commission at the last meeting. It has been recommended for approval. It does go to the township board. It should be in front of the board in January for the final approval. I can't really address the water pressure. The water and sewer department will, review it for capacity. Trustee Neming.
Reference the water pressure, sir. After the meeting, when all you people were here, I asked my DPW superintendent to give me a pressure reading, and the pressure through that whole area was between 45 and 50 pounds. I'm looking at my emails, but I don't have it. So the pressure is the same all the way through that area. So there's no, like, some people, I thought, it was addressed that there was no, like, water pressure. It's between 40-some and 50-some pounds. I can't find the email, but that was addressed. Hold on, let me finish. That was addressed by my DPW supervisor, because I did ask him, and he sent me an email, but I can't find it right now.
I guess the reason I'm concerned is why do so many residents in our sub have different levels of water pressure issues?
Sir, could you go back to the podium?
Oh, yes, sir.
We'll allow you just, you're almost out of time, we'll allow you a couple more minutes. As Mr. Palin said, that's not a function of our board here.
Right.
That would be an engineering function. And as Mr. Palin stated, it was a recommendation from this board. We don't have final say on the zoning changes for that piece of property. It is now turned over to the regular board, which Mr. Palin was mentioning. Keep an eye on your agendas for the regular board in January, because it will be coming up. At that time, if you'd like to speak your mind to those folks and sway them from, making the changes. But as far as like stormwater, water running off the property, water pressures, things like that, that's not something that we can address.
I understand.
It's an engineering function.
I understand.
And we're not, some of us are capable of addressing it, but that's not our job. So,
I get it. Would you happen to have, what's the date of that next?
please show up to the meeting and speak to the regular board and voice your opinion.
Absolutely. What would be the date of that meeting? Would anybody know?
Hold on, we're looking at it here real quick. Is it gonna be on the first one, or it'll be the second one?
The agenda hasn't been approved yet, so it'll be submitted for the agenda soon, for the 9th, so it'll either be the 9th or the 23rd is likely, or, that's the right, okay. Sorry, new meeting date just got approved, so I gotta learn what they are.
Okay. So you said 1/9?
The 9th or the 23rd on the regular board agenda, which is on the second and the fourth Tuesdays of every month.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much. All right, sir.
Thank you.
And I would throw out, actually, if you go to the township website, the agenda for those meetings will be posted. So you'll be able to see if it's, which meeting it's going to be at. Yep.
Receive and file all comments regarding agenda items. Number 10 is committee reports, ordinance amendments, board liaison reports, reviews and discussions from members of the commission, consultants, and township employees. Planners report. Ms. Bob?
Good evening. We do have a short little planners report for you this evening. I know, isn't that exciting? So we gave you a couple of things. Last week, well, a couple of things. So Mr. LaBelle in particular has been asking for some kind of a discussion about solar or renewable energy. And we had some full agendas. We haven't had that on, and we knew that there was legislation pending. So the legislation was passed, and it was signed by the governor last week. So we wanted to bring you just the update as far as what we understand that to be, and have some just discussion, not really discussion, just present this information to you and ask you what you'd like to do with it. So you do have a couple of page planning brief that Stephanie and I put together that just sort of outlines what the new legislation says, and I can go through that fairly quickly here for you if you would like me to do so. Yes. So just a couple of things. I know people have, I think, different levels of understanding about renewables, and some folks are more engaged and interested in it than others may be aware. So just a couple of key terms and facts. What is renewable energy? Why we're planning for it? And then what Michigan is doing in our new legislation. So simply, renewable energy is energy from a source that's not depleted when it's used. So that would include wind, solar, bioenergy, so that might be things from organic matter, wood waste. It can be municipal solid waste that's burned as fuel, landfill gas, biogas, hydroelectric, and geothermal. When we are talking about capacity, and this becomes pertinent when we're thinking about this legislation, is there's some terminology related to the capacity or the energy that's generated by these facilities. And those are discussed in, not really in watts, we're really talking about kilowatts and megawatts. So a 100-watt light bulb is 100 watts of power when it's turned on. That's how much it uses. And then that light bulb's total energy usage is defined by watt hours. So if the light bulb runs for 2 hours, it consumes 200 watt hours of energy. Kilowatt is 1,000 watts, and a megawatt is 1,000,000 watts. Interesting little factoid, in 2022, the U.S. Energy Information Administration found the average annual amount of energy sold, so that may not be necessarily all used, to an electric utility residential customer was nearly 11 kilowatt hours. Kilowatt. So when we get into looking at this new legislation, we have a couple of things that are regulated or provided for in the new legislation. So the first is an energy facility, and that's an energy, well, I copied the wrong one. It's an energy storage facility, and so this is the batteries or the large-scale utility-sized facilities that are going to be containing the extra energy that's generated by these new facilities. Wind energy system is a system that uses one or more wind turbines to generate electricity and has a nameplate capacity of 100 kilowatts or more. So the nameplate capacity is how much that facility can generate when it's running at full power. And so that's what we talk about there. Solar energy is capturing and converting solar energy into electricity for the purpose of sale or for use in locations other than solely the solar energy facility property. So we have two different kinds of renewable energy facilities. Those would be the ones that we might have on our own personal property for our own personal use, or a business might have for their use. And then there's the utility scale, which is primarily generated for other people to use. So just a couple of very short, interesting slides on renewable energy and the shares of energy consumption by major sources. So early in history, we were burning wood primarily for our cooking and heating and lighting. And then from the late 1800s until today, we've got a lot of fossil fuels, so coal, petroleum, natural gas. Those have been the primary sources of energy. And you can see purple is the wood, which has really dropped considerably, whereas the gray is the coal, and you can see it at its maximum in the early 20th century. Hydropower and wood were the most renewable energy resources until the 1990s. In 2022, renewable energy provided about 13% of the total U.S. energy consumption. So more people are using renewable energy sources. It's helpful to understand what might be coming in terms of energy facilities, what the township can regulate, and what's limited through recent legislation. And then we'll be able to set some clear expectations for property owners and potential developers as well. So again, we have the difference between utility energy systems, like the large picture there. That's a very, I don't know where that is even. It's one of the generated pictures. But that's a lot of electricity being generated there through both the solar and the wind power. As compared to a smaller system, the small picture at the bottom with the solar panels, that's actually one of the folks on our planning team, that's his house. So we like to use that picture because it's kind of cool. So earlier this year, Dr. Sarah Mills from the University of Michigan was presenting information about kind of the state of the energy systems and what communities would be wise to consider regulating, what was coming our direction. And this slide and a couple of the next few were from her presentation, looking at the energy capacity that we have currently in 2023. That was like 3,500 megawatts of wind and 770 megawatts of solar. You could see those. And if you go to the link, and I can share this with you, you can look up those maps on your own as well. And then some of the things that were coming that was anticipated. So about 118 projects and almost a little over 19,000 megawatts of large-scale solar projects being considered around the state. So with statewide plans and Michigan's plans calling for an increase in the amount of renewable energy to be prepared for future fuel costs and the fact that cost reductions are making renewables possible statewide, there's a big push for that. Do want to highlight that photo at the bottom of grazing lands in association with solar panels. We can have a lot of other conversations about solar energy, but I think one of the interesting things that we've seen over the last couple of years is the mixing in other things with solar panels. So if we think of just a solar farm and that's the only thing they have on it, we're starting to see other things. So there are places where we have the ability to have some pasture area under there for smaller grazing animals. We also have the ability to plant for pollinators as well, which helps other farms and other species in the areas. Again, with about 11 megawatts versus 160 megawatts, these are just showing the size variations. So with a smaller, 11 megawatts is still pretty significant. Average acreage is about 50 to 88 acres each. With other scaling up, then the more megawatts you have, the more property that you need and the larger amounts of acreage that you would see associated with those. So the questions have been raised, where would these be located? Having access to substations is obviously important, but how close? And it kind of depends on the size of the project. Larger projects can go within a couple of miles of that. Flat land is preferred. It tends to be farmland or undeveloped land or underutilized. Brownfields is always a question that's raised, and it's possible, but there are limitations on that as well. So this is another part of Dr. Mills' presentation, thinking about the local benefits and concerns associated with renewables. So benefits to the local community are landowner payments, the potential for tax payments, jobs associated with the development of the site, improvements potentially to water quality and pollinator potential, with some of the concerns being wildlife impacts, the visual impacts from the community, from residents saying that's not why I moved here, or concerns about property values and whether renewable energy facilities are the best use of land. And so those are all things that particularly in areas where they have a lot of farmland where there's a high demand for these facilities. These are a lot of the questions that have been raised. In 2008, Michigan started a renewable portfolio standard, and that's designating the percentage of utilities' electricity production that needs to come from renewable sources. So it was 10% in 2015, and it was increased to 15% in 2021. And utilities are using renewable energy credits to track their progress towards reaching that standard. They're created through renewable energy production, and there's some other ways that they can get credit for that. But through the production, each credit equates to 1 megawatt of electricity. So there's a big push for that from the electricity utilities. Nearly all of the renewable energy used to meet the requirements of Michigan's renewable portfolio standard is generated in Michigan. So that's interesting to know that we're generating the electricity here in the state that we're using. Since then, it's been primarily wind, but solar has been growing rapidly and substantially due to the drop in prices for those kinds of panels and facilities. So the new Michigan law that was signed last week supports Michigan's clean energy goals by really, I think, trying to create a consistent regulatory approach to the approval of the substantial renewable energy production. So this is addressing large-scale utility solar. There have been across the state local communities where they have either prohibited them completely or passed moratoria on them, or having a wide variety of approaches to standards associated with them. And so to make that process more consistent throughout the state, this new legislation tries to do that by setting forth standards intended to help support community concerns while also providing a path for a utility provider to get approval for the facilities that they want. So essentially, there's a list of standards, and I'll go through those in a second, some of them. And the community is determined to have a compatible ordinance, and the community can have that project go through their own process. If not, they would go through the state, the Michigan Public Service Commission. If the community doesn't agree with it, this legislation sets aside $75,000 for the local community to protest that certificate, should it be issued against community's interests. That said, these are speaking specifically to wind facility projects with a minimum capacity of 100 megawatts, and solar arrays with a minimum capacity of 50 megawatts, and then energy storage facilities with a minimum capacity of 50 megawatts and a minimum energy discharge capability of 200 megawatts. So again, these are very large-scale projects. Projects have to enter into a host community agreement and pay $2,000 per megawatt of the project's intended capacity. And that's intended to be used for public safety or other projects that are jointly agreed upon between the applicant and the local community. There's a requirement that the community does have to enter into those agreements, and if the applicant says that they've tried and there isn't any willingness on the part of the community to do so, that the applicant can work with a community service organization or some kind of agency within the community and provide their donation through that route. There is a requirement that they provide public benefits. So they've listed that some of those could include expected tax revenue paid by the energy facility, payments to owners of participating property, community benefits agreement, local job creation, and any contributions towards meeting the state's energy goals. They do have requirements for maintenance of ground cover, as well as for meeting or exceeding pollinator standards, and those are the pollinator standards set by Michigan State University, and ensuring such plantings do not include invasive species. There's other standards that are referenced specifically for that, so it's an interesting addition into the legislation. So communities with compatible ordinances, as I said, may follow their own process, provided they don't conflict with state law. This includes the maximum setbacks and site standards based on the type of system. So here you'll see, it's a little challenging to see this, and this is included in the table that we've handed out for you. So you can see that. So it just includes the standards based on the type of facility. So if it's solar, wind, or the energy storage, we've got the setback standards, and then also the height, and then standards related to sound, lighting, any other standards, and fencing standards. There is a process where the electric provider has to offer in writing to meet with the chief elected official to discuss their site plan. At that point, the elected official has 30 days to respond to the applicant or the electric provider whether or not the community has a compatible ordinance. So if the ordinance is compatible, again, it goes through the community's process just as it would, and then they have 120 days to make an approval or denial of the application. So there is that timeline, or that shot clock, if you will. We've seen that in other legislation at the state level as it relates to wireless communications facilities, where we have a certain timeline preventing communities from potentially throwing up roadblocks or hurdles that prevent an efficient review process. If the ordinance is found not to be compatible, then the applicant has a 4 to 8 month period to work with the local officials before the state authority takes over. If the applicant chooses to go right through and seek the certificate from the Public Service Commission, they still have to have a public meeting in the local community where they would like to develop. So there is an opportunity for the community to share their thoughts about the project. Some of the next steps that we might think about here in Chesterfield Township, you do have wind energy standards that could be clarified with respect to large-scale applicability. So the ordinance says that we've got these standards for wind energy systems, but they relate to only projects that are primarily designed to serve the site itself, allowing for some to be sold back because that's part of what happens with those. But the primary purpose of those is to be consumed or consumed on the site where it's generated. The township does not have solar energy facility standards or energy storage facility standards. So we could talk about looking at regulations that could be compatible for a more local involvement in the process. And then I think that gives the community some ability to have some local control here, and making sure that the local ordinances are no more restrictive than those in the new laws. And that's a short summary of that. We can have additional conversations as you are interested in doing so. And I can answer any questions you might have now, or information that you might like in addition to what we've shared with you tonight.
Thank you. Any questions by anybody on the board? No? If not, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner comments? I'll start with Mr. Demink.
Yes.
Well, it's the last meeting for 2023, guys and ladies. Thank you again for all your service and what we've done. We've been through a lot this year. We've had some ups and downs. We've worked on some big issues between cannabis and other rezonings, and there's a couple rezonings that we denied that are going to court. So I'll be sitting on those court cases, but thanks again for everybody's input. It's been a pleasure working with you gentlemen now for 3 years, going into my 4th and final year. But it's been great. I wish you the best. Have a happy holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's to you and all your families. And hopefully I'll see you in 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Brookhart.
I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Renault?
Other than just wishing everyone a happy holidays, I did have a quick question for Jonathan. A few meetings back, we had talked about, because we have continually coming up in our, in presentations that we need brick or better. And what can we do about getting some sort of presentation here where we can see like what are more current up-to-date building materials, things like that? I'd love to get exposed to that information.
Yeah, there's talk about a committee to go through it, or I'm sure, I mean, I've seen it before at some of the conferences where there's industry experts that will come out and make their pitch. So we can really decide as a commission, or the commission wants to start a committee to start investigating it, or if we want to just start bringing some stuff forward and see where it goes from there. But
Okay, yeah, I was just looking for ideas, but I'd like to, in 2024, I'd like to move towards getting some of that education. I think that'd be great for all of us, actually. But other than that, have a good holiday, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Nothing. I'll just follow up on the same thing. I know it's our last meeting, so it's been a great year, and wish everybody a Merry Christmas and great time off. And yeah, and I'll, the solar, coming from DT 7 years, I was primarily on the gas side, running all the, the construction in the state of Michigan, but I did do some solar and wind, and they've spent the last, I don't know, probably 10 years on wind, and just in the last, when I left about 2 years ago, they were starting to make the hard push for solar, because the technologies has finally caught up enough to where it's more economical. Still not getting as much output as they would like, but it's much better than it used to be. So now they are transitioning to solar. So I think it's a good thing to get ahead on. And yeah, I don't know how well that fits in our township, just because a lot of those farms, they're still going out in the middle of nowhere. To be honest, I think even though we do have a lot of farmland, I don't think we're remote enough. But not saying that there wouldn't be some potential development, but I think we got to be prepared for it. So I think it's a great topic, and then obviously the materials discussion, that's always a fun one. I'm still a firm believer that brick is still the best. They've been doing it for thousands of years. As a general contractor, pretty much every building that we see is still brick. There are always accents, and I think in the commercial world, definitely, you can open up the palette to some other materials, but ultimately, when you want the most durable, longest lasting material, it's still brick. So, but yeah, definitely interested in doing those, whether it's a committee or something. I think it'd be a good thing to get into. So, thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Carr. Mr. Jaworski?
The solar, wind, and energy storage, this all new stuff, I just want to point out, I want to do a little bit more research on that, but from the limited exposure that I've had to that, the state level trumps local level, so just wanted to point that out. I know you get your say in the game, but again, state trumps local. I want to just be very thankful and grateful to the professional people that I worked with this year on this board, and again, through all the cannabis, rezoning, chaos, etc. So Merry Christmas, everyone.
Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas, and everybody have a good holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard.
I'd be interested in having some professionals come in to discuss their products with us, so we really know specifically what these products are capable of doing to hold up. They've gotten a lot better over the years, and they probably will continue to do so, but I'd like to know from a professional representing these products to tell us. So if we can come up with a list of suitable products and then have them in, that would be great. And with that, I just want to wish everybody a great Christmas and New Year's.
Thank you. Mr. LaBelle?
I also would like to wish everybody a happy holidays and have a safe and prosperous new year. Looking for volunteers for pre-planning on January 16th, I believe it is. Mr. Leonard and Mr. Renault? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Look forward to next year, and maybe we can get some solar stuff in Chesterfield. Jim's got a big farm. Maybe we could use his property.
Yeah, I will not be partaking in any discussion because I am under contract for a solar facility. So,
Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:26.
support.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr.